It's Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and with me, my co-host, Phil Emery. How you doing, Phil?
I am doing pretty good. We're recording on a Friday instead of a Thursday, so anything can happen.
It's going to be madness, I tell you.
It's madness. It's
the whole week is turned, not quite upside down, but close to it.
Elephant rides for the kids, the whole thing.
the whole shebang. All right. Don't forget the bouncy castle.
Yes.
For the rest of us, please send your comments and questions to at Song Talk Radio on Facebook or Instagram, or feedback at songtalk.ca for the email, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode, to find links to resources we mention, and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs that we feature. Tonight, we're very happy to welcome Toronto-based neo-soul and R&B artist Chromatics. How are you doing, Chromatics?
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. Happy to have you. And before we get to Chromatics' song, just another heads up about our songwriting challenge for 2024 is to write a holiday song. And in the next few weeks, Phil and I are both going to be sharing our answers to the challenge to write a holiday song. And of course, we invite our listeners, once again, to send in your songs. We thank the people who have sent in their songs already. It's been great to start receiving yours. And of course, as before, we will be showcasing the listener songs on dedicated episodes of the podcast as we get closer to the holiday season. So, yeah. Have you gotten any progress on yours yet, Phil?
I have not touched it since the last show, but I do plan on doing some stuff on it this weekend.
Yeah, me too.
You need to get it done.
yeah, me too. I'm actually doing mine first. I got mine before yours. I've actually got about 17 tabs in my browser open for various research things. I was looking up on the internet to try and get some lyrical ideas and stuff like that. So I've started doing that. Haven't found any good rhyming words yet, though. So we'll see.
Christmas, Blissmas. That's it.
The first holiday song I wrote way back when was called Blissless Christmas.
Okay. To do a remix.
Do a remix of that and I'm done. Jeez. yeah. That'll be the easy way. Alrighty. Okay, and just a little segment on the CBC's The Current that I heard this week. Could doctors soon prescribe music as medicine? So Matt Galloway, host of The Current there, was talking to author Daniel Levitin. And Daniel Levitin, as our listeners are very well aware because they're on our resources page. His earlier book is on our resources page on the website at songtalk.ca called "This Is Your Brain on Music." It's a book that I read many years ago where he was like a rocker guy turned neuroscientist and started investigating all the relationships between neuroscience and music. And of course, he makes lots of references to rock music, which is always fun in his book. So he's written a new book about this very subject, about how they've gone sort of deeper into the brain stuff, and there's potential there for actual treatment for brain disorders and Alzheimer's and things like that you could actually prescribe music, listening to music or playing music as a therapy. Which, I mean, music therapy has always been a thing, but I guess now they're kind of sciencing it more, I guess, and putting the math on it.
It's an amazing podcast. The most interesting things is the work they've done with people with Parkinson's, because Parkinson's has the tremors, which happen in people's hands and so on. But by using almost like an external clock of music, it helps Parkinson's sufferers kind of regain their balance and regain their control. Which is a fascinating thing, and some of the same for people with MS. So it's amazing how much the brain can do on music. Chromatics, did you get a chance to listen to it at all?
I did get a chance to listen to it. It was an awesome podcast, and I found it interesting because I had been doing music at seniors' homes for a while, and I know there was this one gentleman, and I don't exactly know what his condition was, but I believe he was a veteran of some sort, and he was partially paralyzed, and he didn't speak very much, if at all, at all. And I remember, I think it was a Beatles song that I had gone in and played, and all the nurses and the staff were just dumbfounded because he started tapping his foot and he just started doing things that were unconventional to his normal behavior. And some of them had approached me after and they were just like, thank you so much for providing your music for us. You know, everybody seemed to have loved it, but especially this one guy, we're like, we've never seen him move. We never see him smile. We never see any kind of connection from him to anybody else. And I think maybe playing the Beatles song just brought back some kind of memory. And I liked in the podcast how they said when they tested music, how it accessed every part of the brain, like every part of the brain was firing. And so it must have tapped into something that, you know, sparked joy in him or a memory where he was able to just be in the moment and then like tap his foot, which again was unconventional behavior. And when I heard that, I was just like, man, music is powerful. Like, so to hear it from a neuroscience perspective and those guys kind of get in depth, I was just like, this is really cool. So
yeah, absolutely. And we've heard those stories like time and time again, how, you know, they used to do that thing where you could like donate your old unused iPod or whatever, and they put a you know, music of the teenage days of that patient or whatever, and then they give them that iPod with the headphones, and then see them come alive in a way that they haven't been in the recent past, right? So it's really quite an amazing thing, and for them to be drawing, yeah, like you say, like more of the actual neuroscience into it, where it's not just anecdotal sort of stories, right? That there's actually a real thing behind it. Because the other thing he was saying is this will be important not for doctors, but also for insurance companies. Like there's a potential for real money behind this to be, you know, seen as a legitimate therapy that's, you know, insurable kind of thing. So there's a lot of interesting potential there. I'm eager to see how that plays out in the next.
Well, and it really should, yeah, because it's. You can experience music from a culture you've never experienced before. So you don't understand the language. You might not understand the tonal scale or the intervals, but you can still fall in love with that music even though you don't know anything about it. You know, and it's an amazing thing how it just bypasses all the cultural roadblocks and byways of our brains to kind of get right into our souls almost. It's a great thing. So
yeah, I mean, it's the most universal thing, one of the most universal things. Yeah, crosses boundaries and it crosses time too. Like that's the amazing thing because it literally transports you back to, you know, when you were 12 years old and you heard that song for the first time and totally fell in love with it. And yeah,
that's great. Yes, on our wonderful CBC radio. So
yeah,
go to cbc.ca, but we'll have the link in the show notes.
Yes, we will definitely put a link in the show notes. And yeah, of course, CBC. I mean, they're always putting out good content and good stuff like this. Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. On to the main event. Matthew Isaacs, aka Chromatics, is a neo-soul and R&B singer, songwriter, recording artist, and jazz pianist emanating from Scarborough, Toronto, Canada. Known for his signature style, he blends sublime lyricism with groovy beats, trademark harmonies, and soulful chord progressions that simply complements his euphonious vocal tones. Sharing the truth where original music and art connect, Chromatics' deep and expressive lyrics will leave the heart fulfilled while taking you down a relatable journey that explores sex, love, and relationships. Excited to share his music and story with the world, Chromatics takes on a very personal approach in his recently released EP entitled Cosmic Love. Chromatics delves into life's ups and downs and the experiences of love. Working on his first full-length album, Chromatics has much more in store for 2025. Welcome to Song Talk Radio, Chromatics. Alrighty. Okay, let's get rolling here. Let's listen to Chromatic's song. This is called Not a Love Song. And of course, listeners, be sure to check out the episode post on the website, songtalk.ca. You can download the lyric sheet and follow along. That's it, Phil.
Visions of your body laying next to me, next to me. I've got deep confessions, tell you how I feel, how I feel. I just wanna know, do you remember when love was strong? Do you know this is not a love song? Don't know what to do when I am confused, deeply in the mood of missing you. I know deep within you can comprehend that I want us to be more than friends. Baby, you and me, we were meant to go together. Chronic chemistry. Baby, you and me, we last forever, baby. Cosmic energy. Do you remember when love was strong? Do you know this is not a love song? I just need you, baby, so you understand me. This is not a love song. Drives me crazy when I miss you, baby. I just gotta let you know, this is not a love song. Do you remember when love was strong? When do you know this is not a love song? Not a love song. Not a love, not a love song. Not a love, not a love song. Not a love song. Not a love, not a love song. Not a love, not a love song. Not a love song.
Yeah.
That is super
is what-
smooth.
Thank
This is
you.
what's known as earphone music because it's so lush. You like if you really should listen to the song on earphones. Like don't just listen to it on your phone because I'm sure it'll be fine, but it's much better on headphones. I just want to ask. There's a sound that's on the chords. Do you know what synth that was?
I can't remember the exact name of the synth, but it was one of the producer that I worked with. His name is Justin. His producer name is OK Wes. And it's a signature synth that he loved using out of Logic. And I think it's Logic's most recent uh, standard synth. And he kind of modified it and tweaked it. And he got it so it added these layers. So it didn't also just have the tremolo, but it also had these like paddy, like lush. It was so awesome and fun to play with.
Hmm. So tell us about the process behind the song. What how did it start, and what did you start with that chord progression or with the lyrics, or how did it begin?
Oh man, not a love song. So the process of this was very funny because I remember this was in the middle of me working on the EP Cosmic Love, and me and the producer, we had been meeting every Wednesday for literally a year, rain or shine. We met every Wednesday just to be in the studio and create. And the day he walked in when we started to create the song, he, I guess, was going through a breakup with his girlfriend. And the previous songs we had written were in the realm of love songs based on the project. And he just came in all down and sad. And he's like, man, like, I don't want to write a love song today. And I'm like, why not? I'm like, I already had so many ideas in my head ready to go. And he's like, nah, bro, we're not doing a love song today. And then he kind of broke down to me why he didn't want to do a love song and what he was going through with his current girlfriend at the time. And me being a few years older than him and him kind of asking me for the relationship wisdom, I told him, man, I'm like, I've gone through exactly what you're going through. And it was kind of like when you've been in a situation with someone for a period of time, and then you think that, you know, this period of time, the love was strong. And then post that period, you know, things start to kind of just fizzle. And that sparkle in that newfound relationship starts to dissipate. And he was feeling that, and he didn't know why, because he was just on the high of this newfound relationship. And so I guess when he didn't put in the work to have the relationship maintained, he was just like, what happened to that feeling that was so strong? Like, why don't I feel it anymore? And then I was like, we're putting that in the song, man. Like, that's perfect. And we just started conversing. And I feel like awesome lyrics and content for lyrics come through just organic conversation. And if you feel comfortable in the room, whether it's you by yourself or you with a collaborator, the more comfortable the environment is for even to just talk about things, I feel like naturally you can pull things that are deep within people where it's like, okay, that's perfect for a lyric. Or you might just naturally write down as they're speaking because you're like, man, like that's gold. And you kind of just start formulating things. And
So
that's how the song began.
So was that conversation sort of a jumping off spot, or like, wait, my first question actually was, did the producer you work with, did he mind that you were probing into his, you know, deepest, darkest places sort of thing to pull this song? Or was it just a launching point and then you kind of wrote it, you know, based upon that initial conversation?
I think it was the first. I think because we had been meeting for so long and now we built this 3-year-long friendship. And I think because we were meeting so frequently and got to know each other and we became boys and friends, and naturally we would just, even before the session or during the session, if there was just a topic that came up organically, yeah, that's pretty much just how it began. Like, I was in the studio before he was, and he walked in, and I believe I was just playing with some sounds and some vibes and some progressions. And I think he got the sense of, oh, I think he's going for, like, he's in a ballad kind of mindset today. And then he was just like, man, like, I don't want to do a love song. And then when I asked him why, he started off with very surface level reasons. And then again, because I think we built this bond, he felt comfortable enough to just dive in. And then I was like, yeah, man, like, I think this is what the song's going to be about today. And he's like, what do you want to call it? And I'm like, well, it's not a love song, so it only makes sense to call it not a love song.
Some writers will have a book of lyric ideas or song titles that they just kind of collect as they go through. Are you doing that as well, or are you just keeping everything sort of as it happens?
I think I do a bit of both. I'm definitely all for the in the moment, organic, what are we feeling? Let's elaborate on that feeling. And then the stencil for that can then become elaborated on. But then also, just as a creative, I find myself when I'm driving, when I'm walking, when I'm in places, if I get a lyric or an idea or even a melody and you just record it in your phone, whether it's a voice note or a memo, and you can always access it, that's considered the vault. And if you have a great idea, because our thoughts are so quick, why let that idea fizzle away when you can just record it and use it later?
But do you actually set aside a specific time later on to go over all these little snippets you've
Yes.
recorded and go through them?
Set aside time? No. But there will be times where I'll just open my voice memo, maybe just because I have time or I'm at the keyboard and I'm looking for inspiration. And then that 5 minute, oh, let me just grab an inspiration will turn into an hour and a half of me going through all these voice notes and being like, oh, I forgot about this. I forgot about that. Oh, that was a good idea. And so, but I can say there is one song that was supposed to be on my first ever self-released EP, Thoughts and Afflictions, that's out on streaming. And this song called Why Is It So Hard to Fall in Love didn't make the EP. And that's a song that went into the vault. And that album that you graciously announced that's in the works being released for 2025, that song, Why Is It So Hard to Fall, that was in the vault. I dug it out because the producer that I was working with, I was like, I feel like he can bring this to life. And man, oh man, did I ever make the right choice? Because the way that song evolved and to actually have something that was pulled out of the vault at a later time and then unfolded, I don't know how often that actually happens for people, because I feel like things that go into the vault just go into the vault and just collect dust, right? And so it was nice to pull it out and.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to ask you too, because you put something in the vault, does it ever sort of backfire on you? Like you pull it out and maybe you're not feeling the same thing you felt when you put it in the vault, 2 years ago or something, or even 6 months ago, whatever. And you just can't make it work. And it just doesn't, how quickly can you abandon something and realize that it's not going to work and let's try something else? Or do you pull something out of the vault and think, this is going to work one way or the other?
That's a very difficult question to answer in the sense that I feel like whenever I get an idea that I feel is voice note worthy or demo worthy, if I'm in a DAW and I'm like, I got to save that for later and I don't just collapse the whole session, it's almost like my instinct to save that idea, even if I come back to it later and I'm not feeling inspired to elaborate on it, in that moment, I still feel like, oh, this could be used later. So it's not a matter of, I think the idea wasn't good. I think that's the reason why I saved it for later. I'm like, this could evolve into something at some point. But there have been, I'm not gonna lie, there have been few ideas that I've gone back to and I'm like, that was kind of trash. But yeah. I feel like growing as a musician and as an artist, I have fewer of those. It's just a matter of time to songwrite, elaborate, produce, collaborate with others to make that idea unfold. It's sometimes it takes a lot of work. Sometimes that can be something that I can do myself, right? So it's just a matter of
yeah. No, I think that's a terrific answer, because you're right. As you grow, you kind of edit as a first step. Right, you're already in an editorial process where it's this is not worth it. Okay, scrap it, whatever. I'm just going to keep the good stuff.
That's not making a voice note.
Yeah, I can actually equate it to recording in the studio with the client or even with yourself. They always, when you're first starting out, they always say, well, record 17 vocal takes just because you can have it and then you can edit it afterwards. And I used to do that even with production clients and stuff like that. And then you got to slave through all this little stuff that has very nuanced differences, and you can make the same mistake the same way every time anyway. So why you record 17 versions of it? So nowadays I'm just I can just edit on the fly. Right? It's no, that take was not worth keeping. Let's try that again. Okay, that one was better. And then by the end, I've got maybe 3 takes to deal with instead of
17.
So you're right. You do that first pass and you discover the gold. You have a better instinct for what is going to be potentially good to work with and what is not. So yeah, that's awesome.
You had a couple of interesting techniques. You brought in a variation to your verse on the second verse, which I'm always wondering, because I would do that a lot. And then I sort of thought, well, if you have one verse and then you have a variation on the second verse, is it a variation? Because there hasn't been enough of a repetition to make it a standard. So then I'm always thinking, well, should you do the variation on the third verse? But you did that on the second verse, and like it's a very different kind of verse.
And it makes verse
one.
2 a double verse. You usually verse
Yeah.
1 could be a double verse before you get to your chorus. You went and did it on the side. Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's like a spoken word thing before you get back into the really melodic verse. That's an interesting choice.
Now, is this a technique that a lot of the artists that you listen to use themselves, or did it just feel like a natural thing to do?
It's a good question. I have to access my memory quickly, but I do think a lot of artists I listen to, especially in the crossover between the neo soul, jazz, R&B world, I feel like, songs will have the theme or the head or the main idea, and then they'll kind of embellish that, or they'll kind of take a deviation that feels similar, but it's also kind of taking you on a different emotional journey. And so I feel like a lot of artists that I've listened to do that, and I just felt like this song, I wanted to amalgamate a little bit of that. And I felt like, repeating the melody in the verse 1 for verse 2, it just didn't feel right. It just felt like I'm telling a story, and we're talking about the feeling of this relationship. And so I wanted to express a different emotion.
Also, I think it is also a lower tempo song. And I think sometimes if you do maybe the same thing too often, it can get a bit, not boring, but, maybe a bit too familiar. And there's some singers who do like lots and lots of embellishments and, to kind of get over that. But I really like the variation you did. And another really cool thing was that sort of, we'd call it a tape stop, because what you would do in the studio is you basically put your hand on the reel and it would stop. But now, of course, it's done with the electronics. Except I'm sure there's people who are working on reel-to-reels again because, why not? But there's like that tape stop right before the bridge, which works so well because it's a lower tempo song. And sometimes like if you're doing really fast, like 120, 140 BPM tracks, you'll sort of like and then like that. But to do that on a lower tempo song was so unexpected. Like every time I listen to it, I laugh a bit because it's just so cool. But it sets up the bridge. Whereas if you just kind of, did a drum fill or just went, halftime or whatever it was, I don't think it would be as effective. It's a really neat technique, take something and do something unexpected, but not jarring, which I thought was great.
Yeah, there's literally nothing jarring about this entire song. I mean, it's really interesting that you got the 6/8 time, so it's kind of ebbing and flowing.
6/8?
It's in 6/8.
Yeah.
And you got the kind of ebbing and flowing thing, and you got a lot of space. Like it's amazing how much, like again, beginner songwriter, you want to cram as much as you can in there and fill it up, right? But it's like visions, of your body, like it just kind of flows, right? But that also gives you the space to do things like that variation verse, right? Where it's almost like you could have like a guest rapper come in there and do that or something, right? Where they just like recite this thing that does fill up the space, right? Because you've got the malleability there. You can let things grow. You can shrink things down. You can do those kind of drops. You can do those kind of things that'll all feel organic and nice because at that slower tempo too, like it'll either feel like it's flowing. It'll never feel rushed because it's just ebbing and flowing still, and you got the bass thing going on. Is it the same chords all the way through?
I believe it is the same chords. I don't think we deviated the progression. And so that's another reason why I wanted to give it some variation. But to answer Phil's question before, I give all the credit to OK West, the producer, because when we got to that bridge section of the song, I remember I'm like, I don't want like a tape, like a beat stop. Like I don't want everything to just stop. And I remember vocalizing to him, I'm like, it would be so cool if we could kind of just like have a moment where like the synth and everything kind of just goes like, shoo. And he was just like, oh, say no more. And he got to the computer and he did this, you know, engineering thing. And then he made the tape stop happen. And I was like, amazing. Like, that's fire. That's so good. And then to Neil's last comment, I think that's where the Cosmic Love sonics came, because I love neo soul, I love R&B and old school music and funk and jazz. And the producer, he's more modern R&B, trap and hip hop, but he has a love for R&B. So I remember we were listening to, I believe it was a Daniel Caesar song, and it was in 6/8 timing. And I'm like, man, I've always wanted to do a 6/8 time kind of ballady R&B song. And so I think that's where we started. And then we kind of got like this organ kind of synth, and that's when I laid down the chords. He kind of layered it so it sounded really cool and had all those tremolo effects. And that's kind of how the 6/8 came into play. So
it's interesting. I never thought of 6/8 as being kind of groovy like that.
Oh, yeah,
I've always thought of it as, you know, maybe a bit more kind of marchy. But yeah, I've never actually worked in 6/8. Well, not intentionally, at least.
I had to explain to the producer that the difference between 6/8 and 3/4, because 6/8 you can feel in two, but 3/4 is very rigid, right? You have the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. The 6/8 you can. I mean, you could argue this is a song. This is a song in 4/4, but it's swung, or with a triplet feel, because it is
with the
kind
triplet.
of. I mean, that is kind of 6/8 with that kind of a feel. But yeah, absolutely.
And then we even programmed the tremolo to work with the 6/8 timing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, all the tempo synced things. Even the tape stop is tempo synced.
Yeah. So as someone with a jazz background, I mean, those like jazzers will take a melody and explode it to the point where you can barely recognize that. Are you fighting with that tendency to kind of do that kind of jazz, or because your melodies are very catchy and easy and inviting, where some jazz, you know, like I like jazz, but let's be honest, some jazz just sounds like a bunch of people playing and not listening to each other. So,
I mean, I think people like Robert Glasper for, you know, his inspiration and all the collabs that he does on his project, taking soul artists and neo soul artists and R&B artists, and him finding that balance of adding, you know, jazz nuances, but then still making sure that the ear candy is there and the lyrical substance and the sonics are there. So I do take a little bit of that. I think my deviation for creativity in the jazz realm is, you know, the harmonies that I like to do and the note choices. So it's not so much in Not a Love Song, but in some of the newer songs that I'm planning to release on this album and in the future, you know, there's notes outside of the scale that sometimes I like to color in a melody. And that's kind of how I'll deviate. Like Stevie Wonder will do it sometimes, or a modern R&B artist, Lucky Day, will do it sometimes, where, you know, sometimes if they're on a major 7 chord, they'll start the melody on the major 7. And that's just not a typical thing for the ear because of that dissonance. And the way they color their melodies with that all involved, I just taken a keen passion for that. And I'm just like, man, I want to find ways to incorporate that into my music.
Yeah.
And so,
but still keep it catchy and still keep it like you say, the ear candy still got to be there, right?
It does.
It does, and it can be. But you can. I mean, I think that's what's really interesting about. I mean, like you say, R&B, but it's still kind of poppy. But you're scratching those other itches, right? Like you're kind of creating those interesting frictions and things that sort of take it outside your conventional, typical pop structure. because when I say pop structure, it doesn't necessarily mean with synthesizers and pop things. I mean, even folky singer-songwriters, can stay within the pop formula where all the melodies are always on the 1-3-5 and that sort of thing, and they're not exploring those sorts of frictions. I can be guilty of that myself. Heck, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's an interesting thing to explore for sure.
That is a good exercise to do as a songwriter, is to, when you are working on your melodies, is to not start on the first or the third or the fifth, which often we normally will, but just sort of think, okay, what is a flat and seventh? Which I found out that Devo does all the time, which is surprising. But trying to find do a 13th or something, start on a note that you don't normally think about, and now push your brain into doing something new, because it's so easy to put your hand in the same place in the guitar all the time and start the note, the same note you always do, and it's so easy to fall into a rut.
When I'm in my voice note process of maybe just like coming up with ideas, and maybe I have like a progression that I've just looped or something like that, I think I've unintentionally made that a practice where, same thing, like let's just say you have a C major chord, like I'm gonna try and start my melody on the 7th or the 9th and see how I can make that ebb and flow into the 1, 3, and 5s that are so strong in our ears. And I feel like that's where these artists are creating these really cool colors that I'm hearing artists do and wanting to incorporate in my own music.
Yeah, because you're right. That's always a balance point. It's not like you're going to introduce that friction and stay there. You're going to visit it for a little bit, but then you're going to come back to the familiar. You're going to go back to the consonant sort of familiar thing that we all know and love, right?
And that's what makes it cool.
That's what makes it cool, exactly. Because you can't, I feel like acts like you mentioned Devo, and acts like that where it's kind of a little bit outsider and a little bit weird, they tend to stay there a little bit longer, maybe. It's supposed to sound odd and weird, right? This song you gave us today is super smooth. I mean, even if you're doing those kind of frictions, it still remains, majority in that consonant smooth place.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Which is a great place to be, I think, because it's all in those little details that make the melodies interesting.
When you're working on a song, you're saying so you loop how are you doing your melodies? Are you just looping and then walking around singing on top of it till you find something you like, or do you start off with your melodies and then go to the chords?
Most of the time I start with the chords. In the maybe last year or so, just from driving, walking around, doing whatever job I'm doing, working, and I'm humming. Sometimes if I find myself humming in a certain key, same thing, I'll try to find cool note choices. And then if that stays in my brain to when I come home and I can put it on the keyboard, I'm like, okay, how can I color this together? But then there are a majority of the times where I'm at the keyboard first and I'm just trying to find a chord progression that, is calling my name, calling the inspiration. And then once I lock that in, I'm like, ooh, I like those changes. Then I'll start to do, bap, 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 and mumble and get all my melodies out and see what I like. And same thing, when I get to that stage with my drummer, who's also a producer, we've made that an exercise. And it's like, how can we choose those weird notes? And let's say we have the first 8 bars and this is our idea, we lock that in and then we go to the next 8 bars. And let's say we're starting, here in our range, the next 8 bars, let's elevate it and let's bring it up a bit. That way, when we get to the chorus, we're at a more, higher range that's more palatable for that part of the song. And then choosing weird notes and tying all those things in at the same time. And so that's kind of the approach and process we've kind of been.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So what's the next step for the song?
For the song Not a Love Song?
Yeah,
is this out already?
Yeah, is it a single or
So I released 2 singles off of Cosmic Love earlier this year. And then the EP dropped. And then slowly I've just been rolling out a couple music videos and visuals I've been having for each song and kind of just dedicating some rollout time for that. And I think my next music video drops in 2 weeks called No Gravity off of the same EP. And so just doing that for the rest of the year until I can get my gears going to figure out what the hell to do for this album. So
cool. You're dropping all these like space references with the cosmic and the gravity and the.
There's a song called Galactic Love.
Yeah, I remember hearing Galactic Love. And it's like, wow, yeah, that was wicked cool.
And it's funny because I didn't realize I was doing it as the same thing. We were meeting every Wednesday, and I think we made 13 tracks before we cut it down to a 7-song EP. And I didn't realize, but when I was trying to collect the project, I was like, oh, I didn't realize I named these titles kind of outer spacey, and let's see if we can compile these and see what happens. And it worked. So
it worked.
Are you a sci-fi fan?
I like sci-fi. I do.
Yeah.
But I'm a big astronomy nerd. I love outer space stuff.
Oh yeah.
So
outer space is very big. You might think it's a long way down to the dentist. That's just peanuts when compared to space.
Pretty much anything compared to space is tiny. All right. Except for this podcast, it's huge. Okay. That's about all the time we have on Song Talk Radio. Special thanks to Chromatics. And where can our listeners find more about you and hear some more tunes?
You can find me with my handle @Chromatics on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, as well as YouTube. And I think that's all.
Okay. And you want to spell Chromatics for us, for our listeners?
Chromatics is KROMATIX with an underscore at the end.
With an underscore at the end. Okay, perfect. We want to hear from you, so please send your comments on Facebook or Instagram to @SongTalkRadio, or send us an email at feedback@songtalk.ca. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes, and subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. You can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show on our resources page on the website. And please join us at our next monthly Song Talk meetup. Whether you're in Toronto for our in-person meetups or anywhere in the world for our online meetups, it's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend, bring a song and a lyric sheet, and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. You can follow Phil.
PhilEmery.ca.
And Chromatics, what's your favorite social media channel? Where do you post the most?
I think I post the most on Instagram.
Instagram, yeah, that's where I've been following you. Great stuff there too. Okay, so there we go. And please stop by the website, songtalk.ca, to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on writing.
Good night.
So long. Okay. All right. Awesome stuff, man.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's a great tune.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for showcasing and having me. And Neil, it was great to meet you at it was Reed's Distillery, right?
Yeah, it was that R&B Soul Night thing. It was actually my wife's idea. She bought us the tickets for that. And because she's a way bigger R&B fan than I am.
Okay.
And yeah, when I saw you perform, I was just like, oh yeah, I gotta invite this guy on a podcast.
No, that was awesome. Thank you.
Galactic love and everything. It's great.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that you know a lot about music and you can talk about it, there's some people who just write, totally from, instincts and they don't know much about, theory and stuff, which is fine. But it's nice to be able to talk to someone who could understand like a major seventh and that type of thing,
Yeah, my friends and a lot of people I'm their theory guy.
Yeah.
And so being a piano player, I mean, who else, right?
You gotta be a theory guy to play piano. It's
yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand, I guess.
It does. Yeah. And it's so visual too, right? So
Oh yeah,
I suppose, yeah. It's like it's very laid out, like sheet music is laid out, right? So
that's true.
linear, not like
Yeah.
guitars. Guitars are just like confound me, non-linear systems. Like, what the heck are you guys doing?
Well, they're so easy.
But then the ones,
you put your
but
hand
the ones
in
who
like
have the chops and the theory, like my guitar player, and there's a few others in the city that I've been keen to go and see play. I'm just like,
Those jazz guys, man, they know their
Oh,
theory
yeah.
inside and out on the
Oh,
guitar. Like, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
and they just do all the sauce when they're playing, and it's just so nice.
So tasty.
Oh,
Like the guy who played for both me and Del
Yeah,
Hardy,
yeah. Oh, he was spot on. Oh my god.
like he's the man.
He's a man. He makes it look so easy. It's like, dude.
Well, what's so neat is you have people like that, and then you have like punks who just have their hand in one shape
One
and just
shape.
go up and down the,
Down the
neck. But they wind up doing great songs as well. So it's
Very true.
It's,
Very true.
It's, yeah, it's apples and oranges. Like it's all good.
Yeah.
I think it's just that comes down to taste. You know what I mean? At the end of the day,
Yeah.
whether you're playing complex stuff or simple stuff, it's how can you translate good taste, right? And
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the complex stuff, when they make it sound easy, that's when it's like gold.
That's always been my opinion about jazz is you listen to Dizzy or you listen to, Wes Montgomery or any of those guys, and it just sounds like they're just kind of doing it, They're just kind of
easy listening.
Yeah, they're just sort of doing this amazing stuff, but they're so good that it's really hard to get to that level because they're so good, They're like these Beethovens of our time, and
like the Stevie Wonder, just like how is your music so digestible to the common ear who somebody has no clue what a C major or a C note from a D note is. And he takes you on the same thing with like Billy Joel and Elton John. They take you on these musical complex journeys, but it's so digestible.
I know.
And it's just so easy to consume.
When Stevie Wonder did Superstition, he played the drums all the way through first.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so that was the first thing he laid down was the drums.
Mm.
And that's actually him playing the drums on the track.
I saw a YouTube video today. Amy Nolte's a piano player, a YouTuber, and she was expounding upon "Steppin' Out" by Joe Jackson and talking about how complex it actually is, but it just feels so natural and just it's such a catchy, wonderful song. And you can't even like she was going through the chords and going, you can't even say what key this is in. It's so all over. He's borrowing this and that and modulate, intermodal changing and all this and everything, but the melody just flows over top of it. It's beautiful. Like really, really cool.
That's where I think that's where they say that's where the magic happens, right? That's the magic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Well, I'll give you a heads up when the podcast is published, probably within the next week or so, and you can share it on all your streams and stuff.
I happily will.
And when you and Afros get to collaborating, you should both of you should come back on the show and talk about.
I think we'd love that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll have to be in the new year because we're booked up till then.
Yeah, give it some time.
Okay, awesome. No, not a problem. Thank you guys for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome to see you again, and great stuff on the show.
Great.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
And I guess stay tuned. I think I got maybe 3 shows left for the year.
Okay.
So I have your email, Neil. So I'll see if I'll try to remember and send you guys some invites. It'd be great to see you guys out sometime.
I'd love to come out again. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and if you ever happen to be in St. John's, Newfoundland, let me know.
Oh, you're all the way out there. Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
You used to be in Toronto. That's where we know each other from.
Yeah. But,
well, I'm actually playing Markham Fest tomorrow, and it's streamed online.
Ooh, okay. Well,
so
maybe we can do that.
There we go.
Yeah, I'll send Neil a link.
Yeah. I'll forward it to Phil and check it out. Yeah. Awesome, man.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay, well, have a good night.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, take care.
Bye.